What's something we all just pretend no one does, but in truth we know we all do it? It is not the picking of the nose that separates us, but what comes after. My dad, 2015. Trying to fart carefully so that it doesn't make too loud of a sound. Look up words that people use because we don't know the meaning even though we pretend to when they are talking. Winning fake arguments in your head. Recently I had to insist that my wife knocks loudly and waits before opening my son's bedroom door. I really had to explain why FFS. I know he's constantly jacking off. But he would be mortified if anyone knew. Especially his parents. Picking your nose and finding that root bug that feels like it's attached to the base of the brain. If you eat 15,000 calories in a day, you get $1 billion. How do you get it done? 1 piece of chocolate cake. 1 ice cream. 1 pickle. 1 slice of cheese. 1 slice of salami. 1 lollipop. 1 piece of cherry pie. 1 sausage. 1 cupcake. 1 slice of watermelon. I've been reading a lot of The Very Hungry Caterpillar. I feel like that should do it. As many Cinnabons as it takes. Just eat at the Cheesecake Factory for all 3 meals a day, plus desserts, and you'll be good. Really not that hard if you are allowed the full 24 hours. High-calorie drinks and super-processed foods that are engineered to keep you eating. I guess I can cut back a little if it means being a billionaire. The trick is not to eat the calories but to drink them. Creating or buying 2,500 plus calorie milkshakes is shockingly and disgustingly easy. Most of us could relatively comfortably drink 5 to 6 of these for this. This is certainly the easiest cop-out way to achieve this. What was normal when you were a kid, but you never see anymore? Showing up to someone's house without a text or call. Cassette tape innards strung out along the highway, glimmering in the sunlight. Using a set of 20-old encyclopedias as reference for my homework. JFK as president. Parents smoking in a car with kids with the windows rolled up. Moms yelling from the front door to their kids to come home for dinner. Memorizing phone numbers. What's an ingredient you hate but most people like? I hate when people add stevia to desserts. Artificial sweeteners. The taste is why I detest diet drinks. Artificial rose flavor. Fennel seeds. It's the one food aversion I haven't been able to conquer. I'm gonna hit you with a real one. I don't like macarons. Their taste and texture is super underwhelming compared to how they look. Visually they look amazing, but I take one bite and just wish I made brownies. Canned spinach shouldn't exist good fresh, however. Police, firefighters, EMS. What's the strangest, scariest call you've been on? I was once woken up around 5 a.m. to the call of a one-vehicle MVA car versus tree with injury and #X200B. I arrived to find that a man driving a car had driven it head-on into a tree at an estimated 120 to 140 miles per hour. The car had disintegrated on impact, scattering both human remains and car parts into a hayfield beyond it. When I say disintegrated, that's what I mean. Car was utterly obliterated. And #X200B. We did not know how many people were in the car when it hit the tree, or if any of them had survived. Miracles do happen occasionally, I've seen it myself. So our department was tasked with searching the hayfield inch by inch to find anyone living or dead. And #X200B. I'll set the scene for you. It's early morning. The sun is just coming up. We're shoulder to shoulder in a hayfield. Hay up to our knees. Walking a grid pattern and stopping when we encounter car parts or human remains, the latter of which we marked for disposal in hazmat bags. And then we found the first DVD, then the second, then the third, And #X200B, the man who had wrecked, was a porn reseller who had a trunk absolutely positively full of bootleg porn DVDs. There were thousands scattered in the field. So as we walked this field at 6 a.m., marking human remains and avoiding car parts, searching in vain for any survivors, we were walking through piles of porn DVDs. Thousands of porn DVDs. Of all titles, varieties. And #X200B. We eventually determined only our ill-fated driver was in the vehicle. All the remains we had marked we came back and placed in hazmat bags. A few of the largest pieces of car remaining were put onto a trailer. And we left. Nobody touched the porn. To my knowledge, there is still a hayfield in southern Mississippi that is absolutely full of old bootleg porn DVDs. And #X200B. I occasionally think about this man as I get older. Why did he have so much porn? And where was he going with it in such a hurry? 4 young boys 12 to 15 stole a car, hit an oncoming lorry, burst into flames. 1 thrown clear but died. 1 over half burnt, died in hospital a week later. 2 dead and burnt in the car. Once we had extinguished the fire, we realized that the fabric of the car seats was burnt, so the metal had fused with the bodies. Had to cut 1 boy's fingers off because they were buried in the dash. Then had to stand behind him while 1 colleague hit him in the shoulder with a pickaxe to pull him forward, and I could then get a shovel behind his back and try to prise him free of the metal. Whole thing took over 45 minutes to complete. Over 20 years ago now. Still think about those boys on a regular basis. Shame. Was such a waste of life. Not gruesome, but odd. I worked in a horrible part of the city. Got called to a building. 5 floors up was the apartment. I get there and the family leads me to a door. The door is locked from the inside, with the key still in the lock. No way of getting in through the window because it's so high up with no window that opens. Just solid glass. Ceiling is solid cement. I broke open the door. The guy is on his knees. Outside the bath. Head over the side of the bath. In the water. Dead. Like someone had held his head under the water. My dad was a major city police detective. He was driving with his partner on midnights when they saw smoke and fire coming from a house. They call it in and beat the FD there. They hear screaming and crying coming from the upstairs windows. But being a rough area, the windows have bars in them. They went to enter the house to run up the stairs. But the flames and smoke were too much. Everyone in the house died, including small kids. Dad gets home in the AM. And my bedroom was right off the kitchen. It was cool because you'd get to hear conversations if you were bored. Dad starts crying while talking to my ma, saying how he tried everything he could to get in, but they couldn't get to them. Said hearing those kids screaming and crying wrecked him. Never heard or saw him cry before. He dealt with a lot of gallows humor on the job when telling me stories. But nothing to joke around there. Firefighter here. We had a call to a fire at my friend's house. Fully engulfed. We arrived on scene to find my friend's older sister screaming, "She's still in there." Quote. Since I knew the family, I knew she had just had a baby. Nobody else in the family was there. I ran up to her and asked if her baby was still inside. She said she was still in there, but because the fire was started on the bedroom side of the house, she couldn't get to the baby's room to save her. My department is not interior attack. We do not enter homes. We simply suppress the fire from outside. Right as I was about to run inside to save that baby, I heard a scream of relief. I turned around to see my friend and her sisters with the baby running towards the house from up the street. My friend had taken her niece to get ice cream and didn't tell her. The fire was started just after they had left for the gas station and was fully engulfed by the time they got home. They lost everything, but I'm so thankful they took that baby. Not really scary but really gross. I'm an EMT but I do mainly transports. We occasionally do 911 but it's usually the fire departments that do 911s. And we're taking a man home. Dispatch tells us this dude has bed bugs. Gross. So before we talk to the nurse, we get gowns on, duct tape or boots to our pants, take tape to the back of the ambulance. The usual. Nurse comes up to us and tells us that the dude has bedbugs bad. She says that they stripped him and showered him but he's got long thick hair and they're sure there's probably still some in his hair and that they put a hairnet on him. She explains that they threw his clothing away and any belongings they could because everything was incredibly infested. Great. Lovely. So, dude is a sweet old man. Don't see any bugs on him as we get him loaded up. He explains that the place he lives in was infested when he moved in but his slumlord landlord won't do anything about it. He calls family on the way over to his home to come pick him up at his house because he doesn't want to go back inside now that he's got most of them off of him. They agree so we get to his house. Family isn't there yet so we get him unloaded and get him up to his porch. While on the porch, I noticed that it's covered in little black dots. As we're sitting him in the chair on his porch, I notice that the little black dots are A. crunching underneath our boots and B. are moving. And then my brain realizes that those black dots covering the entire porch are bed bugs. Luckily family shows up just a few minutes later. We check him over before we help him in their car. And then we let dispatch know we're going back to station to get changed and switch trucks. Another story. We were at a hospital. I think picking up a patient. And we notice the helicopter coming in. We also notice that in the trauma room, they have a fuck ton of stuff set up for something. Crash cart is sitting right outside the room, as well as a team of at least 15 people. I comment to my partner how that doesn't look good. We go about our business and I think nothing of it. Next morning rolls around and I wake up to the news that one of our coworkers was in a massive accident and was flown to the hospital where he ended up dying from his injuries. Realized that it was our coworker that we noticed getting flown in and that the trauma room was set up for him. If we had been a few minutes slower, we probably would have seen him being wheeled into the trauma room. And that he probably died before we had even left the hospital with our patient. Subscribe, my brothers.